remember it being very quiet. I said, Mom, like, do you think I should be a parent? And she said, you know what she said to me? I think of it in those moments where someone's sneaking in my bed in the middle of the night. She said, it's not for everyone. And I think she was trying to warn me.
Oh, that's fantastic. Welcome to Bad Parents, a podcast about three bad parents who are trying to raise good kids. She's Shawna.
Hello.
He's Ryan.
What's up?
And I'm Johnny. A Tell It Like It Is podcast for parents to laugh, cry, and to make you feel better about your parenting.
All right, on this edition of Bad Parents, we tackle the headlines. We open up the old newspaper, and there's three different stories that were kind of trending recently that involved children, and we thought we would tackle them with our own unique angle. Enjoy.
Welcome to the Bad Parents podcast. If you, show of hands, who watched the Tom Brady roast in this room?
Oh my God, I loved every second of it.
So we all are raising our hands.
Yeah.
We would be real bad parents if we let our kids watch it.
Oh, yes.
Well, that's why it's taking me so long. I haven't got through it all. There's kids around and they can hear all the bad swears.
If you haven't seen it, it's basically a comedic roast of maybe the greatest NFL player of all time, and that's Tom Brady. And I think we've all seen some roasts before. Like I saw the roast of Flavor Flav for some reason and the roast of Justin Bieber. And it's just a great amount of really good comedians taking shots at Tom Brady. And in 2024, where everything is so unbelievably politically correct and woke and whatnot, the jokes hit like it was 1974.
You're so right.
It's like Don Rickles might as well have been on the stage.
Yeah, it was so interesting and weird to see and hear what was going on. And there was Tom Brady just taking it.
Yes.
From everything from his ex-wife to what it was like in the locker room, and just a lot of real like, wow, I can't believe I'm hearing this on TV right now. And sometimes it can take its toll unintentionally on the family.
Yeah.
I think walking in, especially with some of the names like Jeffrey Ross, who was one of the comedians, you kind of knew what you were getting into. And from my understanding, and obviously I'm not part of it in any way, shape, or form, is that you need to sign a waiver saying, hey, I give you permission that this is on the table.
Right.
And I think at the time it's all fun and it's all whatever. It's going to be good times. But reports are coming out now that Giselle wasn't overly impressed.
No.
And his kids weren't overly impressed.
Because one of the jokes, one of the themes that continually came up was the fact that she is now dating her jujitsu instructor that she's been doing jujitsu with for quite some time. So the word on the street, the optics of it is that she may have left him for this jujitsu instructor or stepped out of her marriage with this guy. And of course, that was the fodder for a lot of the jokes.
Right.
Now, he knew that was going to happen. He seemed to take it well, but the issue now is with her and he said his kids. He wished now that he has some regrets because of how it affected his kids.
Yeah, like I got to think what kid wants to hear that their mom allegedly stepped out on their dad and they're no longer together now.
Right.
I think that if they were still married and it was like a happy marriage, they couldn't have really attacked that part of it because there wouldn't be a storyline. It probably wouldn't have been so bad. It probably would have been more about football and just every other part of it. But my God, man, they hammered the Giselle thing.
Oh, they
nonstop.
really did. They hammered her just like the jiu-jitsu instructor.
That's right. That's right. Hey, listen, everyone's a little bit different. Like I was one of those people that I didn't have a sense of humor with my parents at all. Like we joked around, but I wouldn't want anyone talking about my parents.
Oh, I think you're right. Exactly.
And I was never, some kids and some parents are a little more free will when it comes to talking about sex and things like that. I was never like that with my parents. I didn't want to hear, we have a buddy and we used to bug about his mom all the time about, taking it and stuff like that. And he loved it. His sisters, he didn't care. He just was wired that way. I would lose my mind.
Yeah. I noticed a difference with my two boys. My older kid has the best, darkest sense of humor. You can go anywhere with your humor. He's fine with it. And he's the one who's the product of divorce, but we can crack jokes. The little one, the 10-year-old who's more silly and goofy, funny enough, he does not like that. He does not find that funny.
Right. And so you say to yourself, now listen, they're not a normal family. And I'm sure the kids at some point, they hit a certain age where they realize we ain't normal.
Right.
So.
But it's their normal.
And at the end of the day, it's still their mom and dad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think that's what it boils down to. I don't think any sort of kid who has been a product of divorce or been through a divorce is like, hey, yeah, no, zero effect on me. It's been totally fine.
Right.
But not just that, behind closed doors.
Yeah.
Right.
It's been broadcast all over the place. And, it's got to be tough. And I do understand it. My question is, though, and the title of this podcast is Bad Parents. Like, Tom, I know it did unbelievable ratings for Netflix and maybe the gold standard of roast moving forward. And can it ever be topped as far as a celebrity that big ever doing it again? I don't know. And I don't think so. I think some of the negative that's come from it would really sort of resonate with anybody who's thinking about getting into the game. I feel that I kind of look at Tom a little bit differently now, where if it was just, you can take shots at me personally, you can take shots at my career. Other people on the stage, ex-teammates, were just like, Gronk was getting it, Bledsoe was getting it, and everybody's up for that. No one's taking a shot at Gronk's kids.
Right.
I'm not sure if he has any. I don't think he does.
I think he's a bit of a
But nobody,
Does he want any?
But nobody took shots at anybody else's like family.
Yeah.
And the comedians get it. The comedians know they're going to get it, right, from each other. I'm just like, Tom, like, you do have kids, you know they're going to go there. I'm kind of disappointed in you a little bit that you would allow this to happen.
Listen, even the mob say keep women and children out of it.
Yeah.
And you wonder if he would have said.
How did they hear it through school? Like, that's the thing.
Oh, for sure.
That would be something, because the one kid is fairly old enough. Like, I could see if your kids were little. Like, at my job, we talk a lot about stuff. There's a certain part of my character on the air that is definitely true, sometimes an exaggeration of the truth, but definitely is what it is. And as my older son has gotten towards 16, I'm more aware of the fact that he may not listen to the show, and I don't expect him to, but his buddies might, or his buddies' parents might. So I have definitely found I'm a little more, I pull back on certain things
I get it.
than I do with the little one, because there's no way it's going to resonate in his world.
So just for context, he has 3 kids, Jack, Benjamin, and Vivian. Vivian's 11, Benjamin's 14, and Jack is 16. So
See, there's that
they're
there.
getting
Yeah,
it. They're
they're
going to
there.
hear about it, especially Jack at 16.
Well, and that's just it, because what do you think high school boys are going to do, right? And then your mom's Giselle Bundchen. Like, there was a story recently. Was it a supermodel? I don't want to say
Christy
the name.
Turlington.
Was it Turlington? And she did some topless stuff, or maybe she was nude or whatever.
Yes.
And then didn't the kids bring the magazine into school and stuff like that?
I believe she's married to Ed Burns, right?
maybe
and they were hazing the guy, the kid, in the locker room with naked pictures of his mom.
Like, and who wants that?
Oh.
And I mean, I guess that's the other part. Listen, they decide to live a certain lifestyle, right? Like when you're a celebrity, in Tom Brady's case, or Christy Turlington, you choose that your life is out there and you get it. But like, at the end of the day, it's still their mom, and who wants to see their mom naked?
Why do you think I don't have an OnlyFans? Why do you think
yeah.
I still get up at 3:30?
Right, for real. I get it.
So, you guys have kids that are old enough to understand what you do. You're in the public eye. We host a radio show on Q107 in Toronto. Have you been given any rules or regulations as far as what you can or what they do want you to say? Because I believe that they have the right to not have certain things, because I'm sure that what we would find a funny story about our kids that we could tell on air would be mortifying to somebody who's 15 or 16.
Well, as my 6-year-old starts dating and stuff, that's a no-fly zone.
Right, and I get it.
wouldn't even ask him.
Okay. Have they said anything at all?
No.
Because my kids still think it's awesome that I'm on the air.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I actually haven't had that conversation. It would be with my eldest, who's 15. And if you listen to the morning, I don't talk about him as much. And I don't want people to think it's because I don't love him as much. I love them all equally. But he is older, and he's got one of his teachers says that they listen to us. And so it is a completely different thing talking about a 15-year-old versus a 13-year-old versus a 10-year-old, right? So like when we go out somewhere, like I was out somewhere and someone came over and said hi, and I was with my 13-year-old. I'm like, hey, cool, hey, they listen to Dad. And he's just like, whatever, right? It's no big deal to him. But yeah, I'm very, very, very cautious of what I talk about my children, because they're at the age now, some of them, where they might not like it.
You're absolutely right.
And I chose to live this life. Right. I chose to make a career out of personality and my lifestyle and all that kind of stuff. And so you want to be relatable and talk about things about your children and stuff like that. It's just how much detail you share. Right.
So that's a great point. And that's the way that you're handling it on a much smaller platform than Tom Brady is. Even before Michigan, the guy was huge. So why would he then? Does it change your opinion now when you're like, I wouldn't do this to my children on a smaller scale than what Tom Brady has?
And he had to know that joke
You
was going to
had to know what was happening.
That's a good point.
I guess to answer your question,
because he doesn't need the money.
Yeah.
Right? He doesn't need the money. He doesn't need the fame. So I'm just wondering why.
A lot of people are asking why. And not just because of the kids, but like the money and the fame.
And I'll be honest with you. I enjoyed it.
I loved it.
I thought it was hilarious. But you don't think about the fallout at the time. And now looking back, I'm kind of like, meh.
Yeah, but I guess to answer your question is, and I don't want to sound callous, but I don't know them.
Sure.
I don't care. You know what I mean? Like when celebrities do things, it's like, I don't know them. I don't care.
And my husband has no sympathies. Like, well, I guess that kid won't mind when he gets whatever he wants.
Sure,
And he has a Lamborghini at age 18.
Money cures all, right?
Right.
There you go.
Totally, yeah.
I think this next story may resonate a little bit more with Ryan because he is going on a plane where you and I, Shawna, have just been on a plane together. It's very interesting. And there's could be two different sides right down the middle of the way that this would go.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell the story?
Yeah.
Or would you like me to tell the story? Or how would you like it to happen?
Well, Ryan,
do you want to tell the story?
You want to tell the story? You found the story and you've got the British insider.
Oh, he's got the flag in the story.
Hello, darling. You all right there, lovely? British weather presenter named Georgie Palmer, which is just the greatest British name of all time. So she works for the BBC. And the headline is, BBC Stars Act infuriates pilot gets kicked off. And I have no time for like diva behavior. And, you know, I guess in the radio industry, which is our job, maybe the podcast industry, definitely the television industry, there's a lot of ego and a lot of diva demands.
Do you know who I am type stuff.
So my instant reaction was, what did she do? What did she do to get kicked off a plane? Now, it's only her side of the story without being said. But what she did was she got upset because she didn't want peanuts being served on the flight. So I didn't even think you could serve peanuts anymore. But I guess this is Sun Express. It was a flight from London to Turkey. And so maybe certain airlines still do it. And so I guess she mentioned to the staff, like, hey, would you mind having an announcement saying, please no one eat any peanuts? I have kids that have allergies. And normally when it comes to like special services and special treatment, I'm normally with the masses. Right. It's like one person shouldn't dictate the rest of us. In this particular case, you were talking about an allergy, and I kind of knew somebody who died from a peanut allergy. And they were an adult. Now you have children. Right?
Yes.
And I just, having children, very sensitive towards that kind of stuff. So she said, can you make an announcement? And they said no. So she kind of said, oh, I got to spread the word around on the flight. And she started talking to other people on the flight. And they all kind of, the story goes, are kind of like playing telephone. Like, hey, there's a kid with a peanut allergy. Don't order peanuts. And she said, according to her, all the people on the flight were totally understanding and totally cool about it. For some reason, the captain lost his mind and kicked them off the flight. And then they had to get a flight the next day, and it cost them like $6,000. And she said none of the staff were supportive. It was only the people. Like people were hugging her. She said other patrons were hugging her as she left because they felt so bad for her.
Oh.
And so I guess why would the pilot be so upset if everyone else was cool about it? I guess the other argument is like, would you not, if you had a peanut, like wouldn't you look into these sort of things and say this particular flight still sells peanuts or gives out peanuts?
Maybe like all of us, there was an assumption that they haven't been serving peanuts for years. I didn't, like you said, I didn't know they still did that.
Yeah, me neither.
I'm just very interested in the fact that I've never been on a flight where somebody on the flight crew hasn't been helpful in any capacity that I've needed, whether it's been, I'm a nervous flyer, can you help me out through this or whatever.
Yeah.
Somebody has always been compassionate. And they're all mothers and fathers and stuff. And when it comes to a kid, I think even the most hardened traveler, like, this is my seat and I'm not giving it up for anybody. Like, the kid's got a peanut allergy. And yes, you could say maybe they shouldn't fly, but they're sometimes you got to.
Yeah.
Right. So like you would think that people would be a little bit more willing to help out in this area.
Yeah.
But my only question is, it seems a very hard line between the passengers and the flight crew. The flight crew was really against them. So we don't know their side of the story, and I'm not trying to say whatever, but there's two sides to every story. I find it very hard that nobody on the flight crew said to the captain, hey, this isn't going to turn out well.
Yeah,
you're going to kick her off. She has a platform because she's on TV.
Right.
It's going to make it online regardless. I'm surprised that not one flight crew staff stood up for them.
But that's where the fishiness of the story comes in, because even though, yes, we can all agree she has every right to be concerned about her kid, it's a deadly. How did the warning of the other passengers go? Like, was it causing such a disturbance? Like, it sounds like everybody was like, yes, we've got your back. We've got your back. But we've all been on planes. We know people can be nervous. We know people can be, they're not all nice. Not all your fellow passengers
Right.
are nice. I've seen grown men yell at babies. Shut up to
Right.
a baby.
Yeah,
So like,
yeah.
did her talking to the passengers, did that game of telephone get to the point where everyone was so rattled? And was there a sense of unease on the plane at this point?
It could have been.
I don't know. That's all I can think of. That because you're right. Not one staff member kind of had her back.
She said when he found out I had spoken to other passengers, he was screaming at me from the cockpit. And so maybe, and listen, it's also a power thing, right? Like, I don't know how the airlines work.
Yeah.
But maybe the captain is the captain of you know what. And I'm just a flight attendant and you think I'm going against him or her?
Yeah.
Like it could be a power structure where you're like, in your head, I feel really bad that you're getting yelled at.
Yeah,
and you're
that's
getting
true
kicked out.
too.
Sure, but I
got kids to feed.
and I got to fly with this person,
That's true.
multiple times. Like we both work together, and it's just easier if I just take their side. Totally, 100%. Is there any possibility that this lady was a Karen? Stood up and almost dictated that you weren't allowed to
Yeah.
have it instead of asking. Like, how did she handle it?
The exact tone, right? We always talk about that.
If you're getting hugged on the way out, I would, that kind of goes against it. But then again, you don't know. I would just think that like it's unfortunate that there's a child involved, and unfortunate that a parent all she wanted to do was protect them.
Yeah.
And it turned out like this.
Yeah.
I don't know if you mentioned it because I wasn't really paying attention, but after she got kicked off the flight, she had to like spend $7,000. Did you say that?
Yeah.
You did say it?
Yep.
Have a good day. And that also sucks as well.
And at the end of the day, and this is the one thing about airlines, which is you got to be really careful when you see people freak out. They can always play the safety card, and that's what their response was. Hey, listen, due to the behavior of this woman on board and others on board, the captain decided it would be safest if the family did not travel.
Yeah.
Yep.
So they can always play.
And
that
you
card.
are stuck in that moment.
Yeah.
Recently, when we flew together, Johnny and I actually didn't get on the same plane because I had an issue with one of our passports and the dog had chewed a corner of it. Anyways, long story short, when they say no, they say no and you're done.
And that I feel like that line is super thin. That if they just don't like your face and they just don't want you on the flight, you're
so right.
You're getting off. I remember my dad one time was flying back from Punta Cana and he mouthed off a little bit, like just enough that like he wasn't happy with the way that somebody spoke to him, and he just kind of gave it back a little bit. And the threat immediately went to all three off this flight.
Oh, totally.
Immediately. There wasn't a conversation. There wasn't anything. And I'm not saying that my dad was right or whatever. He's not that guy. But obviously he was pushed a little too far and he spoke up about it. And they said, well, if you keep this up, sir, we're going to throw you off the flight.
Yeah.
Zip.
Yep. You got to
Zip.
set up. It's power.
I got to get home.
It's power. And listen, some people can handle power.
Yeah.
Some people can't.
Yeah.
And there's nothing.
I can handle power.
You can handle power.
Oh, yeah, big time.
There is nothing worse than someone who shouldn't have power who has power.
Yeah. Every once in a while, you hear about a celebrity couple being childless by choice. I don't know if it's got an acronym yet, but it should. So I saw this in People magazine. Megan Mullally and her husband, Nick Offerman, don't have kids because, quote unquote, never had an organic burning desire.
Well, that's a little rich, but it's classic celebrity. Sorry, is she the one from Will and Grace?
Yes.
Got you. Okay.
Yeah, and you would know him as well. He's from a ton of different things.
I didn't know they were together, to be honest.
Yeah, she's 65, he's 53. A little bit of boom chicka wow wow.
How long have they been together for?
They've been married since 2003. So if it hasn't happened by now, it ain't happening. But they're not the only ones. I know that Seth Rogen has been in the news a ton talking about the fact that he looks at his friends and their lifestyle with children, says it doesn't look like there's anything good about it. And he gets some heat. He says, listen, I hang out with my nephews and I hang out with my friends' kids.
Right.
And it's not like I hate children, but nothing about that lifestyle appeals to me.
Hey, listen, and it is a serious commitment. If you're a parent, you totally understand. Like it's 24/7. It never really turns off. And I'll tell you, like, even if they're 18 or 20 and they move out, they're still your kid. You still worry about them. Like it's you commit to life for them.
Yeah. And I think the reason these stories resonate is, they're celebrities and we feel like they have different lives. But let's just be honest. There are a lot of people in our lives who've gotten to a certain age, who've made the decision to be childless by choice. And sometimes, lifestyle-wise, I look at what they're doing with their free time, and I'm a little jealous sometimes.
Yeah, like a lot of times. Right. Like we work in an industry where there's, we work with people that don't have children that are, of that age where they could have children. They just chose not to or whatever.
Yeah.
And, you talk back and forth and you almost kind of joke about your lifestyle versus their lifestyle. And a lot of times the people without kids look at our lifestyles and they're just like, I don't know how you do it.
Yeah.
Because I think you just get so accustomed to you do kind of what you want when you want, the thought of not being able to do what you want when you want to do it is daunting.
And I don't think that any of the stories that we've told in the many episodes that we've had about parents would change your mind if you are childless by choice.
Right.
I don't think we're helping the childless by choice community with this podcast, but I do think that I wouldn't know what else to do with myself. Like it's so busy and so chaotic and so crazy. And you're sort of like your comment, right, about being committed for life. Like, why else would I want to be woken up 3 times a night by somebody trying to crawl into my bed and not losing my mind on them?
Totally.
Like, not absolutely freaking out. Because if it was a neighbor having a party, I would have called the cops. But because, like, you have half my DNA, it's okay? I guess so.
But the thing about it is when they say they didn't have a burning organic desire, I don't think I did. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm going to be honest, there was a part of me that always wondered if I'd be a good parent because I knew I wasn't like my mom. My mom was born to be a mom. Right. She says it all the time. It was her dream. It's what she always wanted to do. And I'm so different than my mom in that way. I like to read. I like to be by myself. I like a very independent lifestyle. So I remember having a conversation with her once. We were, funny enough, we were at a train station. I think we were picking up my dad from some business trip. And I remember being very quiet. And I said, Mom, like, do you think I should be a parent? And she said, you know what she said to me? I think of it in those moments where someone's sneaking in my bed in the middle of the night. She said, it's not for everyone. And I think she was trying to warn me.
Oh, that's fantastic. Hey, listen, if we're all being honest, I'll be honest. Like when I met my wife, there was a window there where we went through a bit of a breakup because she wanted to know if I was going to want to get married and have children and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And I loved being with her and we were great together and everything, but I was just starting in the radio career. I wasn't making a lot of money. I still enjoyed kind of partying in my 20s because we met when I was like 26 or something like that. And I wasn't sure, right? And same thing. It's like, I know I can be fun and stuff like that, but there's more to being a dad than that. And I was just so scared and no money, like I said, and I had to really think about it. Yeah. Because it wasn't one of those things as like a burning desire for me either.
And I think this couple here, I mean, they're very wealthy. They're actors. They have so like you said, Johnny, I don't know what else I would do. If you'd had the money at 26 to live a lifestyle of singledom or even child-free living, and do the things that these guys can do with their finances, then maybe it would be even harder decision to say, listen, we can go anywhere in the world, but now we just can't.
It's a great point.
You see that all the time, the memes online of like what being rich is perceived as by the public and what being rich is in real life. And it's a picture of like a family and connectivity and whatnot. And that's great. I would love some sort of parallel of both where I have a boat, but I also have my family on the boat. You know what I mean? Like I know. I would like to see that sort of thing. It's not that I didn't want kids. My path was a bit different, right? Like I had a wife who unfortunately passed away when I was in my mid 20s. And so I was kind of like, speaking of a boat, adrift for quite a while where only until I met my wife now would drag me back in a little bit later in my life. I'm not Robert De Niro old dad, but I had my kids in my early 40s, which is, a little bit later. But I like it to the point now where, and it's all like time and place. I can wish for things, but it only happens because Sarah was there and not on, you know what I mean? Like a whole bunch of things. I wish that I had my kids sooner so I would have more time to spend with them.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I see. You're already
so
there.
Like if I was like 28 and had kids, then I would have so much more of a relationship and be part of things. Like, do I think I'm going to be a grandfather? We'll see. Mm-hmm. I definitely want to be there for their weddings, but like they're 5 and 3. Like there's a lot of time to go. I know it goes by in a snap, but that's my only sort of thing is I was teetering. Yeah. I was teetering between I am or I'm not. And thankfully, Sarah, who is younger than me, really pushed me for it. And we're IVF, and I don't think that's a surprise. Like I'm not telling any tales. It's all on me. And we had to go through a lot of sort of like hoops and whatnot. And there were a lot of sort of obstacles that if you weren't really into it would throw you off. Like I had to get surgery to search for sperm.
I'm always fascinated, and I don't want this to sound, I don't know, insensitive, but I have a friend also who spent a lot of money having a baby. There was some infertility and there was some issues, and I'm talking like tens of thousands of dollars. And I just wonder, because there's so many times in the parenting journey where you're like, what have I done? Not like, what has my life become? My lifestyle. Yep. It's not about the people, the kids. You adore them. You do anything for them. But like those nights where you're up at 3 a.m. or there's another fever and you just can't have the fun that you want to have. I always think of people that spend 10, 20, 40, $50,000 having kids. Like, does that add an extra element to those moments?
It was, I never think about it.
Okay.
Ever.
Really?
I never think about the money. Ever. Sometimes with other friends who have had IVF, like if you're at the park and one of them's acting like an ass, you're like, really, 10 grand for that?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And, like you'll throw it out just as, but I never in the moment of any sort of like anger or like, I'm like, you caused me.
No,
a mortgage payment.
Hey,
Like,
but that's an honest conversation because
Absolutely,
like,
but-
I could, if someone said that, like in real moments of frustration, where they're like, yeah, I admit it. Sometimes I'm like, wow, like not that I regret it, but I spent 10 grand on you, kid.
I
and
can
this is
have
how
a
you're
boat.
treating me. Like, cause sometimes I get
Sure.
that way with my kids if they mistreat me and I'm thinking to myself like, all that I do for you.
Yeah.
Like, and then if you had to pay that much money, you're thinking all I did for you and it cost me this.
Because
I would never pay what I paid for anything else to give me as much anxiety as, as my kids have, right? Like I would
Right.
never be like, I just wouldn't. But it's like, it's so.
like, what's the
I get-
ROI on
Yeah,
a kid?
exactly.
yeah.
I understand why you would have kids. I kind of don't understand why you wouldn't. My life is so much better with kids in my life. And I was always like, because I was older and Sarah's brother had a couple kids, like my nieces. And I was like I'm a great uncle. Like I may have been, but like
It's not at all the same.
it's different, right? Like
Totally.
and for those of you who may be listening, and that is your relationship, where your nieces or your nephews or your best friend's kids are your kids, and that's the way you like it, and you love going to Tahiti 3 times a year, and that's your jam. Then that's awesome. I'm so glad that they're in your life, and I'm so glad that you're in theirs, because it is a community and all that stuff. And that's what you're doing. Awesome. We're not trying to tell you that you need to at 50 to have kids now, or else your life is going to be shit. No one's saying that. But I'm so happy as somebody who was on the fence and who had to go through so many hoops to get them.
Yeah.
It was worth it.
Yeah, right. I don't, there's no regret. There's days of frustration.
Like you just finished inside, right?
I did.
Like you just finished inside?
Yeah, it was quite easy, to be
Okay.
honest. It's quite easy. I was
Did
probably
inside
not
you?
even sober.
you finish inside?
Yeah.
Finish inside you? Yeah, okay. See, but mine was different, right?
Yeah.
I had 6 doctors that had to finish inside my
Put it
wife.
this way, I was the only man in the room when my wife got
Sure,
pregnant.
we had 6.
Yeah.